9 out of 10 African nations have reached the round of 32. More African teams advancing from one tournament than we have seen ever before for the entire history of the World Cup combined till this year. It is truly impressive. Let me ask you a question. They said Africa wasn't ready. They said we wasn't tactical. They were all wrong. Can we all agree that now? You understand? Can we all agree that now? Even some legends embarrassed themselves not too long ago by saying those things. And we are absolutely seeing the African teams are showing that they are ready to come to the party. They are ready, and they have always been ready. They are just waiting for the opportunity. And that is what we are seeing right now with the round of 32 and how these boys have absolutely made everyone proud. Let's start with the context because we need to set the scene for everybody listening to understand what happened. Africa sends a record of 10 teams to this tournament. For the first time ever, double-digit continental representation on football's biggest stage from just 5 in Qatar in 2022 to now 10, double that. You get, prior to the 2026, only 6 African nations, 6 African countries have ever reached the knockout stage in all of World Cup history. Only 6. And they started playing the World Cup a long time ago before they even thought about conceiving me. And I'm old. I'm unk at this point. You get me? Only 6 have gotten to the knockout stages, with 11 African teams reaching that point across every tournament ever played. You get me? Morocco's Qatar's run, what Morocco did in 2022, gave Africa belief that we haven't seen before. They were the first African team to get into the semi-finals. To the semi-flipping finals. At last, the Lions defeated Belgium, Spain, and Portugal on their way to the last 4, giving Africa football its strongest statement yet. That is truly it. We defeated the Lions. We defeated Belgium, we defeated Spain, we defeated Portugal on their way. And I say we because we are proud of what Morocco did that situation. Last World Cup. Top players in that situation just because of how successful they were, just because of the way they showed their ability and their want to get to the bigger stages. A player like Abu, who was being coveted by France. Let me say that one more time. French team, the French national team, the 2018 World Cup champions, were looking to get Abu Buardi. And Kylian Mbappe's led team were looking to get this player, this 18-year-old. But he chose to represent these African roots. He chose to represent Morocco. And that is what we are seeing. We are seeing the tide change. We are seeing the tide change in real time. And that is the best part of this entire thing. Because truly I say to you, my brothers and sisters and señores, is waking up. African football is waking up. I only wished Nigeria was as far as that, because we just might not be seeing Michael Olise play for France and be playing for Nigeria. I'm telling you. It is changing. African football are getting players to come back. Cameroon got Brian Mbeumo. Ivory Coast got the other Doué brother. If they would have gotten Desiree Doué. But he had already played for France, so they couldn't. So when I'm telling you that African football is getting back, they are understanding that they have the power. They are understanding that physicality and athleticism is just as important as tactical nouns, or just as important as the flair of Brazil. Come on now. And don't get it twisted. When people speak about, oh, African football is all about running and act, that's not it. We have our tactics. We understand tactics. Because we don't want to play the way the tiki-taka, the press from front, does not mean it's not tactical. It doesn't. You understand? But that leads me to all the controversies that we saw before the World Cup started. Italy who are not even in this tournament. They have not been in the tournament in 2018. They did not qualify for the tournament in 2022. They sure did not qualify for the tournament in 2026. That nation, the Italy's coach, because I'm not going to blame the whole nation. The whole nation, they ain't doing nothing. But the coach Gattuso had the effrontery to say this, and I state, you understand? Because I'm quoting him here. I have to quote. Because I wrote it down and I said, ooh, he just said something that is going to bite him in the behind. He said this. He says, in my day, the best runners-up went straight to the World Cup. In 1990 and 1994, there were 2 African teams. Now there are 9. It's a controversy, but it creates difficulties. What? Are you serious? That is what you want to say about them opening a slot from 24 to 48. That is what you see. That is what your take was. Are you serious? But this response from Africa, 9 out of those 10 teams reached the knockout stages. You love to see it. All these African teams just did was tell Gattuso, you need to shut your mouth and learn how to coach more, because the Italian side trusted you to get them to the World Cup and you couldn't even do that when Europe has more spots than Africa. More spots. Read the flipping room. And then you have Bastian Schweinsteiger. You have Bastian Schweinsteiger, someone that I actually love. He is a cult hero of my football club. Schweinsteiger, while covering the tournament as a pundit for German broadcast, AR described Ivory Coast style as African football. Is a bit unorthodox, a bit wild, a bit perhaps also not so conditioned by tactics. So we must be prepared to be unpredictable. And of course, Ivory Coast manager Emerse, I hope I pronounce his name, Emerse Faé, fired back. He says, I think it's sad. Schweinsteiger was a very good player. I always loved him as a midfielder and the way he understands football. But when I heard his comments, I was disappointed in the man. It is odd he would speak that way. We could call it racist if we were calling a spade. Those were the words of Ivory Coast manager. And pardon me, I'm just reading it out to you, so I haven't read this before. And I'm just reading it out right now, so if I'm going back and forth, my bad. Faé then goes on, he says, all I can show is that on the pitch. African teams are not just physical, we are technical and tactical. Those were the words of the Ivory Coast manager, and I absolutely agree with him. Then Ivory Coast went on and reached the round of 32. Let football do the talking. That is what we absolutely said. And that is what they showed. That right there is what they showed. And I am so proud of all of them. Don't get me wrong. Nigeria is not in the World Cup. And that is a different case that we would absolutely face. Because the giant of Africa should not be the one left behind. We should be leading the charge. 10 years ago, we saw Morocco and Nigeria get the same amount of investment in our sports. And we saw Morocco reach the semi-finals, while Nigeria did not even qualify for the 26. Nor did they qualify for the 22. It's problematic. But we move. Today is a celebration and not a reminiscence or a looking back at what we should have done and what we did not do. But let's give every single African team their credit. Starting with the best African team right now in world football, Morocco, the favorites. Most goals scored by any African team in this tournament with 7. They haven't lost a single game right now. You get me? I need you to understand this. Morocco has not lost a single game and they have netted 7 goals. They drew with Brazil. They beat Scotland. Ismail Saibari opened the scoring in the 73rd second against Scotland. Fastest goal in the group stage. They face Netherlands in the round of 32 right now. And Morocco beat them in Qatar. They can do it again. Mark my words, they will do it again. Now let's look at the fairy tale of Cape Verde. I hope that's how you pronounce it, Verde. First ever World Cup debutant. And they went unbeaten throughout their group. They went unbeaten. Bear in mind, their group is including Spain and Uruguay. When you underestimate an African team, you get beaten. When you underestimate an African team, you would absolutely live to regret it. They drew with Spain and Uruguay. The goalkeeper for Zina became a viral sensation of the tournament, pulling off 7 saves against a star-studded Spain side. In the opener, bear in mind, Zlatan was laughing at them and saying, oh, the World Cup is about winning games and not gaining followers. Why can't you do both? Cape Verde is the 3rd smallest nation ever to feature in this tournament. About half of the squad was born abroad. The diaspora built this team. I need you guys to get that through your noggin. Half of that team were not born in Cape Verde. I'm telling you, people are remembering that if you play for a team, if you play for a people that would love you forever, you would go through a brick wall. And that is what we wanted the likes of Eberechi Eze to do. We wanted the likes of Bukayo Saka to do. We wanted the likes of Nani Madueke to do. Imagine those players in the Super Eagles of Nigeria. In fact, let's not start that because that would depress me. Let's move on. Now they go and face Argentina and Messi in the round of 32. Don't get it twisted. It's going to be a tough game. And Messi probably are the favorites. But do not put it away. Do not put it above the likelihood that Cape Verde gets something out of that game. Cape Verde can knock out Argentina. I know it's a stretch, but I'm putting my money on them being a miracle. The fairy tale is not going to end in this knockout, this round of 32. And then we go to South Africa. I understand some Africans do not want me to talk about South Africa. We understand the situation. However, we have to give them credit. The people of Bafana, the people that are doing what they are doing. But that's a different situation. Now let's focus on the football. They opened the entire 2026 World Cup against host Mexico with 2 red cards. They lost 2-0 and they looked dead. But the Bafana, I hope that's how you pronounce it, finished strongly against Czechia before defeating South Korea in Monterrey to seal their place in the knockout stages and knock South Korea out of the World Cup. It's the first time South Africa will partake in the knockout rounds of the World Cup. In their world's history, right here, history was made again. They are going to be facing Canada in the round of 32. And do not put it against them to put Jesse Marsh in a spliff, to give him fimble of all fimbles that he will see. And then we move to Ivory Coast. Côte d'Ivoire, the comeback kings, lost against Germany 2-1 despite leading, had a player denied entry into Canada. Drama all tournament. Nicolas Pepe double sealed the Ivory Coast place in the knockouts with a 2-0 victory over Curacao. Bastian Schweinsteiger called them wild. They are in the last 32. He is a pundit. They are players. He was an old player, or he was a player, but he's not anymore. So he can do all the talking he needs to do. But they absolutely are showing the working. They go on to face Norway in the round of 32. And my goodness, I am excited for that. Because Erling Haaland understands that they are not going to even win the World Cup. Bear in mind, he opened his mouth to say it. So why don't you absolutely pack your bags right now in the round of 32? Because Ivory Coast is going to put you guys in a spliff. We go to Egypt. We stage Salah's swan song, commanding second half performance to defeat New Zealand 3-1, significantly boosting their knockout chances. Salah has a slight hamstring concern going into the knockouts, which is a problem. But that is definitely a huge story that we are going to be tracking and looking at on it. They are going to be facing Australia in the round of 32. They definitely can beat Australia. I understand that Australia has the likes of Irukunda, who, by the way, could have been playing for an Africa team. Who knows? But they can definitely defeat them. And then we go to Senegal. The resilient Lions. Ismaila Assar, popularly the best player in Crystal Palace right now, scored a double against Norway, but couldn't stop the comeback. They lost 3-2 in a thriller. He bounced back sensationally. Senegal defeated Iraq 5-0, 5 in their final group game to squeeze through as the third place team in this World Cup. They go to face Belgium in the round of 32. And let me tell you this, Belgium are not all that. Senegal can defeat Belgium. De Bruyne is not playing in his best place. Lukaku looks out of shape, out of depth, not having much fitness. So they can absolutely do it. And we go to Ghana, the stoppage time heroes. Young midfielder Caleb Yereki, I don't know how to pronounce his name, so Ghanaians, don't come for me. Just eat your egg, don't come for me. Got a winning goal in the 5th minute of stoppage time to send thousands of Ghanaians in Canada into a frenzy against Panama. And that goal right there to be very crucial on them qualifying to the round of 32. They held England to a 0-0 draw, drew against Croatia before losing through the stages. Now they are going to be facing Colombia in the round of 32. Now that game right there is going to be really difficult. I know that for sure. But guess what? Ghana can do it. I understand. I might be optimistic. I might be overly hopeful in this situation, but I don't care. I don't care. Not about Democratic Republic of Congo. Fimbu, stand up. Returning into the World Cup for the first time in 52 years. Last appeared as a year in 1974. They held Portugal to a 1-1 draw, which proved to be such a crucial header from Johan Wissa. In their opening game, they came from behind to Uzbekistan 3-1 to qualify as a third place team. They are going to be facing England in the round of 32. One thing is for sure. Ghana put England in the most difficult position that they have found themselves in a 0-0 draw. Congo can do better. Congo can go there, put it back, make it so difficult, and then hit them on a counter that they never saw coming. And they would absolutely be crying and saying, oh, it's not coming home yet. They can do that. And then we go to Algeria. The dramatic qualifiers started poorly, lost 3-0 to Argentina, recovered to beat Jordan 2-1. Algeria and Austria played a 3-3 draw that saw 2 goals scored in the second half of the stoppage time, enough to send both through. That game, that 3-3 with the 3 goals from each, were enough to get them through to the knockout stages. And they go on to face Switzerland in the round of 32. And my goodness, even though Mbolo is absolutely a superstar, and we know Granit Xhaka absolutely has what it takes to create tempo from behind, Algeria can. Riyad Mahrez is still there. He still produces. He can still do it again. And last but not least, the one sad story. Tunisia, the only African team that was eliminated. Tunisia were the first African team ever to win in a World Cup. They beat Mexico in 1978, but have never progressed beyond the group stages in any tournament since. They lost 5-1 to Sweden and 4-0 to Japan and departed without a point in this competition. Now, one thing I would say is sacking a manager after the 5-1 loss is definitely detrimental. And it's definitely like an African team to do that in a tournament. And they brought in, I don't know, and he never changed anything. You could have just given that manager the opportunity to keep on, see what you do in that situation. He brought them there. Let's see how he absolutely goes on. But the bigger picture in this situation, let's get away from that sad story. African's team has taken points from Brazil, he has taken points from England, taken points from Portugal, from Spain, from Uruguay, and from Belgium at this tournament. Squads with history and pedigree that have struggled to cope with the African teams. Morocco, we co-host the 2030 World Cup with Spain and Portugal. The investment in African football is growing. I need you guys to understand what I just said. Maybe you guys don't understand. Morocco will co-host the 2030 World Cup with Spain and Portugal. Investment in African football is growing and it is looking so good. We have seen quarterfinals runs, a semi-final, and somehow, right now, I'm still waiting to lift that trophy. And the first team to do it would absolutely etch their names in African football history forever. Forever. Last year or last World Cup, there was a fan, is it last World Cup or this World Cup? I heard it something, but it might be on NPR. The fan says, we are here for the title. It's this World Cup. The fan says, we are here for the title. Underdogs, that was back in 1998. But in 2026, in America, we are going to prove that 2022 was not a fluke. And my goodness, I hope that's the case. My goodness, I hope that we go on to absolutely show the world that African football is here to stay. And there's a reason why the talents that are flooding the rest of the world, majority of them have African roots. There's a reason why Jose Mourinho says if African players go back to play for their roots, African teams will be winning the World Cup every single year. We'll see how this plays out in the round of 32. Let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that follow button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.